On TV, on radio, and on your smartphone. This is Talk TV.
It was the social media post that unleashed a multi-million-pound war of the wags. A public face-off that pitched two high-profile women against one another. A 7-day trial that saw their most personal secrets revealed to the world. The so-called Wagatha Christie trial between footballers' wives Colleen Rooney and Rebecca Vardy captivated the nation. And last week, the 3-year saga came to a climax, with Vardy losing her libel claim. The judge called her evidence manifestly inconsistent, evasive, or implausible. The widespread conclusion is that her reputation is in tatters. But what does Rebecca Vardy think? Is this the final chapter in the saga? And how does she feel being the most vilified woman in Britain? Tonight, in an extraordinary interview, Rebecca Vardy tells her story.
Let's start at the beginning. Where were you when you first heard about Colleen's tweets, and how did it feel?
I was in Dubai with Jamie, pregnant. It was going to be our last holiday before baby came along, so we'd gone out, international break, gone out just to have a bit of sun and a bit of downtime. And I think we were in day 2 into our holiday, and got up in the morning, everything was fine. We're getting ready to go out to go meet our friends at a beach bar, and I started to get messages through on my phone saying, "Oh my God, have you seen this?" And usually if I'm on holiday, I don't tend to look too much at my phone unless I'm speaking to the kids or what have you. And I got sent a screenshot of something that had been put up on Twitter, Facebook and Instagram consecutively within minutes of each other. Kind of reading it, I had this most overwhelming dizziness, fuzziness, disbelief really at what I was reading.
And what did you do?
We were in the taxi, we got to this beach place, this beach bar, and walked in. I don't know, I can't, to be fair, it was so traumatic, I can't really remember exactly what happened then, but all I remember is Jamie getting me out of there pretty quick, because I thought I was just going to pass out. Just through the biggest adrenaline rush I think I've ever experienced.
And did you ring Colleen, or did you text her, or try and find out what had happened?
On the way back in the car, she messaged me saying, I've tried to call you. So I tried to call her back, no answer. And then I can't remember who it was that finally got through to, if it was me or whether it was her. When I finally did speak to her, I just said to her, "Well, what on earth is this? What have you done?" And she very aggressively and callously said, you know what this is. And I really had no idea why she would say that and where it had come from. And that conversation wasn't very nice at all. Very odd, bizarre.
Were you upset? Did you try and
I was devastated.
explain to her?
Yeah, absolutely devastated. Because I didn't do it. I didn't do it when she first put it out there. I didn't do it, you know, all the way through this process. I didn't do it yesterday, and I still sit here today and still didn't do it.
Well, we've now had the verdict, so it's been a couple of days.
Yeah.
Give me your reaction. How do you feel about it?
I'm really disappointed. Didn't really expect it to go that way. But I think we had a judge that didn't understand the case and didn't look at everything. It feels like the judge just read what was written in the media and took on their narrative bias.
I mean, the judge said that your evidence was implausible and that Colleen's evidence was truthful and honest. Do you think that's fair?
No, I don't agree with that at all. I think, you know, I went into court telling the truth, and, you know, and if that is what happens to someone that goes into court and explains certain things and explains their side of the story, I felt like I was on trial for doing the most horrendous things.
The judge in the end found that because you had leaked stories or given stories to the press before, that she was fairly certain that she was happy that there had been no libel. Do you think that that's a fair judgment?
First of all, I have never given stories to the press. I've never leaked stories on anyone. Yeah, there are a few messages that read differently, but I think if you looked at anyone's messages out of context, without knowing the tone of two people, they can be interpreted in completely different ways. There's some things that I'm not proud of, but there's absolutely, without any shadow of a doubt, I never leaked any stories on Colleen Rooney.
But there was a story that came up about Peter Andre, for example, during the trial.
Yeah.
That was an example of a story that you had given to the press.
But I didn't leak that. That was a story that I put my name to, and it was something that I deeply regret and I'm deeply ashamed of. But it was so long ago. You know, life for me was so different then, and I tried to explain the situation in which that came up, and you know, I just think that was wrong for him to have brought into that situation. He had nothing to do with it. That had nothing to do with what I was accused of.
Do you feel like you've been made out as the villain in this case, and that ultimately this was maybe even trial by media? You've spoken about the fact that there were lots of negative headlines about you and the fact that you believe the judge didn't treat this case fairly.
Yeah, I definitely feel like I was made out to be the bad guy. Everyone, you know, has to be painted in certain lights, and, you know, unfortunately I took the character of the villain in this.
Do you think Colleen really should share some of the blame?
Look, I think she did what she did, and, you know, she did it for her reasons. I think it was terribly timed. I think it was quite cruel and quite unkind, but she did what she did, and I just wish that, you know, she would have given me the opportunity at the time to have a conversation with her, to, you know, deal with it privately and discuss certain things without putting stuff out there to the media. She knew what was going to happen off the back of it. And it's just such a shame that she didn't, but I hold no malice towards her or ill feeling or anything like that.
Have you spoken to her since the verdict?
I haven't spoken to her. I made an attempt to contact her in November of last year in a private message, and she didn't respond to it. She just gave that straight to the lawyers.
What did you say to her in that message?
Just basically said, you know, I didn't do it. We can still sort this out. You know, we could have sorted it then, and we still can.
Because her team say that they did give you opportunities to withdraw, essentially to stop this from going as far as it did, and that you chose not to do that.
If that's their version of events, I wouldn't class that as any form of olive branches or settlement. I mean, I think that any suggestions like that, you can't enter into settlement negotiations with people that are being aggressive and trying to offer settlement, basically saying that I accepted blame anyway. So to me, that is not the way it went at all.
Do you think there's any blame in this that you should accept? Do you think there's any part of it that you should hold your hands up and say, you know what, yeah, there was something that happened here that wasn't quite right?
No, because I didn't do anything wrong. And I didn't do it, you know. There's lots of people that probably have given stories, you know. I still see lots of different things in the media about her, and, you know, I feel like I was enemy number one and target number one, because there's still stories running all the time.
Do you think that part of this is about the fact that maybe you were aware, or you may even have had an inkling, even if you weren't fully aware, that stories were being sold because of access that you had, or stories were being given because of access that you had?
I didn't even think about it in any way like that at the time. It was, people have conversations unknowingly and, you know, unintentionally talking about other people, and it wasn't something that crossed my mind at that time. You know, it was conversations that people were having in passing, and there was lots of different people having conversations about them at that time. So I didn't see why I was any different.
Yeah, we're talking about conversations with your agent, between you and your agent.
The court heard that stories from Colleen's Instagram account could only have been leaked by Rebecca or her agent Caroline Watt, with or without Rebecca's knowledge. Mrs. Justice Steyn said that Rebecca decided Caroline Watt should not give evidence, partly because she knew it would be shown to be untrue. Lawyers for Caroline said she was not well enough to appear in court. On the third day of the high-profile libel claim, the judge heard how Caroline Watt had lost her phone in the North Sea, just days after the court ruled its contents should be searched.
How do you feel about her in this? You know, she wasn't part of this trial. She hasn't had to answer questions about it.
It's really uncomfortable to talk about someone that has been made so ill by this from a mental health perspective, so unwell. You know, she's had threats, she's had lots of different things. She's been attacked by the legal team, by Colleen's legal team, in ways that should never have happened. I never called her as a witness because I knew how bad her mental health was. But throughout this whole process, at the beginning, at the middle, and the end, she's always reassured me that she had nothing to do with this.
Do you think she feels bad about it? And I ask that because obviously in the court case, it did come out that she had said it was me, that she was responsible for one of these stories. Do you think that she feels that responsibility?
It's not a conversation that we've had. It's not a conversation that I'd want to talk about with her, just purely because of I'm so conscious of her mental well-being and, you know, how it's affected her as well.
So you don't feel let down by her?
Oh, come on. You can't ask me that.
It's difficult. It's difficult. But obviously part of this conversation is about, you know, the conversations that you guys had, which formed part of this process. And that is really difficult to talk about. I totally accept that. But you know, there is a role here.
Do I feel let down? I feel let down by a lot of people, a lot of things. But most importantly, I feel let down by the legal system. And I feel let down by the judge for not understanding this case properly.
Do you wish it hadn't gone as far as it did?
Look, we tried different things to ensure that we didn't end up where we ended up. But ultimately, I don't have much choice. I didn't do anything wrong. I didn't do what I was accused of. What else was I meant to do? I was being vilified. I had abuse sent at me left, right and centre, my children. And, you know, I desperately tried to stop it. But ultimately that didn't work.
You've talked about some of that abuse before, and I know it is a very difficult subject, but I do have to ask you, because some of it was really quite vile. Yeah. How does it feel when you come back home at the end of the day and, yes, you're protected in your house, but all of these horrible comments are still getting in because they're coming via social media? Yeah. How does that feel?
It's horrible. It's not nice. You're aware of it even if you're not directly reading it. You know that it's being sent. You know that it's being sent to your children. You know that the kids at school are saying stuff behind your kids' back. It's horrible, and it's not something that you can control. And you know, social media is a vile platform sometimes, and it's something that, you know, really needs to be addressed. And people need to be more responsible for what they're saying to other people, because some of the stuff that I received was just unforgivable on all levels.
Colleen must have seen that too. She must have understood the impact that that was having on you.
And this is one thing that I don't understand. You know, again, I don't hold no ill feelings towards her, but if that had been me, I would have said, you know, whatever I say that she's done, she doesn't deserve, her family don't deserve to be abused the way they are. Because if anyone's abusing her now, if anyone's sending her any horrible messages, or her family any horrible messages, they just need to stop, because no one deserves to be subjected to that sort of abuse on any level.
So why do you think she did what she did in the way that she did, because it was very public. That post on social media, it did attract a lot of attention and it invited a lot of criticism. Did she have ill will towards you before? Because you two were friends up until this point.
It's something that I ask myself a lot. It's something that we've asked a lot, and it's not something that we've really ever had, you know, an explanation for. But, you know, she thought she was doing the right thing, and I suppose you can't take that away from someone when they think they're doing something that they truly believe in.
Do you think she could have been jealous of you?
Jealous of what?
Well, you've spoken previously about how you have a very strong marriage, you have a very happy family. That's not necessarily always been the case for Colleen and her family.
No, and I feel sorry for her in terms of the press that she's been subjected to, the constant spotlight on her marriage, the constant speculation. But I can't comment. I wouldn't talk about anyone's marriage. That's something for them, and, you know, can only comment and focus on me and what I've got. And, you know, I have a happy marriage and I am happy with my husband, and we love each other dearly.
How hard has it been on your marriage? Because for even the strongest couple, it must have been a really trying couple of years.
I would say it's been harder in terms of Jamie watching what I went through and having to, you know, see me so upset, see me so stressed, but also knowing that when I'm going to football games that I'm going to be subjected to horrible chants. There was a point that I had to stop taking the children to football because the opposition fans were constantly singing, you know, horrible stuff about me, and I didn't want the kids to be subjected to that sort of abuse, because as a parent all you want to do is protect your children, but ultimately sometimes it's out of your control and you can't. So that was the hardest part for us, was dealing with the repercussions of the accusation. Not that it put any strain on our marriage whatsoever, because it hasn't. In fact, I'd say that it's made us stronger and more as a unit.
He must have seen you at some really low points. That must have been really difficult for him.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, he was in hospital with me when I got taken into hospital with kidney stones, when I was really poorly, when I was at the lowest of my lows with the stress and the anxiety and just not wanting to even function, even get out of bed in the morning. I mean, you know, I think for any partner to see their wife or husband like that is just, you're at a loss.
Coming up.
Was there ever a point where you just thought, God, I cannot do this anymore? I'm just done?
You're watching the News Desk special, Rebecca Vardy, Colleen and me.
Was there ever a point where you just thought, God, I cannot do this anymore? I'm just done?
There was lots of points. There was lots of points that I went through feeling didn't even want to be here anymore. It was like the worst feeling, but at the same time having those feelings, feeling that I shouldn't be feeling that, because to me that was being a failure, and that was not an option for me to be seen to be like that, for the kids' benefit more than anything.
I was going to ask you about that, because there must have been days when you felt, I don't want to get out of bed, I don't want to leave my house. Did it become quite isolating?
Yeah, it did. But then I blame myself for that isolation, because I think when you're going through this without being pregnant might have been a different thing. But then you add all the pregnancy hormones into everything, the emotions that come from that. I was trying to be mum to the kids, to 4 children that were here, and I had to try and protect my baby as well, because I'd been told in no uncertain terms if this stress didn't calm itself, there was a real high probability that I was going to go into preterm labour. And that really scared me. And from then on, I just thought, no matter how hard it gets, it can't get much worse than what it's been. So I have to now try and turn this around for the kids and be there for them, and redirecting that kind of negativity to try and turn it into a positive was something that my counsellor really helped me with, and gave me tools to be able to do that.
You've seen a counsellor, you just mentioned there. Have you had to, have you been diagnosed with anything as a result of this? Have you had anxiety? Have you had to take medication? Has that been...
I was on medication. I had really bad anxiety attacks, and there's probably a good chance that I will end up having to go back onto tablets. But, it's nothing to be ashamed of. If that helps, then, I'll accept it, because I think everyone has to know their strengths and their weaknesses, and at a point where they need to ask for help, they need to ask for help.
You've talked about hospital before. That must have been very difficult for you. What was the most difficult moment throughout all of this?
Knowing how badly it was going to affect the kids. The kids at the beginning were having to be driven to school in cars with bin liners up against the windows because of the press intrusion here. It just went crazy. It went crazy from, I was just a normal mum, and now I'm a mum. Now I was being a mum that was being called all sorts of things, in the press and so on social media. And it's horrible, because for me at that time, I didn't want to leave the house. I didn't want to do anything, and I just wanted normality to resume, whatever normality is anymore, I don't know. And I felt for the kids. I felt for the ones that were innocent in this, the ones that were being subjected to things that I couldn't control.
How have you explained it to the children? Because you've said before that you have a policy of complete honesty, that you are very open about everything, and there have been some really difficult moments in this case.
Yeah.
How have you dealt with that?
So my eldest, she knows. I tell her not to read stuff, but I think the more you say don't read something to a 17-year-old, the more that they just want to go and do it. And I think for her is, reading stuff about her mum or seeing stuff about her mum that she knows is not true. And I sat down and I just said to her, look, in life, some people will like you and some people won't. That's just part of life, You've got to concentrate on the people that love you, the people that care about you, and ultimately the people that know the truth. And that's the way I've been all the way through this. Don't read the press. Don't do this. If you want to know anything, you've just got to come to me and we'll have that conversation. And I think it's important not to give them too much information and to shield them from some of the stuff that's going on. They're too young to understand, why any of this happened. I don't really fully understand why most of it happened, but as a teenager, I can only imagine, and I just wanted to be there to support her through it. And I think for me, that kind of got me in a situation where it pulled me out of the dark days, because I thought, yeah, this is about you, but, you've got to focus on your family. You've got to help your kids, because you can't become that person that doesn't want to get out of bed in the morning, that doesn't want to go out, that is, you know, at the early stages, I didn't want anyone, I didn't want to be seen, I didn't want to be you doing anything. And I thought, this can't go on. You know, you've got to get a grip and try and get back to normal.
You've spoken about abuse before, but following what's happened and the high-profile nature of it, you know, do you ever get people coming up to you walking down the street? Do you ever get that kind of abuse held at you in person that you see online?
At the beginning, yeah, it wasn't nice. I'd go out to the shops and, you know, someone would walk past and go, I can't believe you did that, you were disgusting, and shout things across the road and stuff like that. And that was one of the reasons I kind of started withdrawing and not wanting to go out as much. But generally, the bad abuse is mainly social media, which is why something has to be done about the way it's policed, the way it's monitored, because it's wild, absolutely wild.
There are some people who say that because you live your life on social media, many people do, but particularly celebrities, high-profile people, and there's an element of that you bring on yourself. What would you say to those people?
Yeah, I don't understand that narrative, because I post pictures on social media because it's a way of me controlling what I want to put out there, what images of my kids I want to put out there, not going to a football game and have a photographer taking pictures of, you know, the kids or me, or, you know, and it's a way of allowing people to have a bit of an insight into your life, because people do like to see, you know, and but retaining that control.
What is it that makes you want to show people into your life?
Because I feel like if I don't, someone else is going to do it for me. And it's always been that way, and, you know, and that's the reason I first started doing interviews, was because so many lies were coming out about me, so many things were being said that are so negative and so false, and the whole image about me that was being portrayed was just a total lie, that I just decided, well, I either sit back and accept this, which I was never going to do, or I was going to fight and I was going to put my events out there, what I wanted out there, what the truth was.
Did you think part of the reason why you've taken this so far is because of that control? You need to have that control?
No, because I was out of control with this. I didn't have any control over this situation whatsoever. It was a way of me taking back, or trying to take back, what I was wrongfully accused of, and trying to deal with that situation.
Is there any part of you that regrets this whole process, that wishes at the very start that you could have found a way between you and Colleen to just stop it from ever going to court?
Oh my God, yeah, definitely. I wish that, hindsight's all well and good, isn't it? But I wish you'd just picked up the phone and just had that conversation. I wish we hadn't have had to go through the process of lawyers, courts, etc. But what's done is done, and, you know, it's time to move on.
Because there will be a significant legal bill to pay, and that will fall to you. Does that worry you?
No, not at all. The legal fees will be dealt with privately, the way they should be. You know, there shouldn't be any gloating about anything to do with finances or anything, and, you know, that should be something that is dealt with through the lawyers.
Because there's been lots of conversation in the press about you being forced to sell homes to deal with those costs.
Yeah, there's been lots of things about lots of stuff, but I don't read the press. I've taken a decision not to read anything. And when I do, or if it's pointed out to me, I learn something new every day about myself, or that we're meant to be doing, or that we've done. There's been quite a bit of speculation about other homes abroad, and yeah, that's categorically not true.
That must be a really strange feeling, to read a newspaper and think, that just didn't happen.
Yeah, that didn't happen, and where on earth has that come from? And, you know, there's been times where people have been told things aren't true and it still gets written, and you're just like, oh, it's exasperating, it's exhausting, but sometimes you just have to accept that some things are not in your control and, you know, deal with the things that are.
So can you see why, I suppose, Colleen really felt so strongly about it? Because you've just articulated that feeling there. It's really difficult when you see something that's not true about you, which is exactly how she felt. So can you understand? Do you have sympathy for her?
I'm sympathetic to the situation she thought she was in, but in her own witness evidence, you know, she said she wanted the stories published. And she intentionally put false stories out there to be published. There's been numerous stories all the way through about her and numerous things, and I'm sure they'll continue. But I just feel like I was made to be a target, and you know, someone wanted it all to fall onto me.
Do you think, I mean, you just said she did want those stories to be published. Do you think there is a part of this that, you know, she does like that attention, she seeks it because that is part of her profile, it's part of her persona?
I don't know, you know, it would be hard to be drawn into saying anything negative about her, because I don't have anything negative to say about her at all, nothing whatsoever. My criticisms fall to the way I was treated in court and the way, you know, certain members of her legal team behaved.
I want to come on to that in a moment, but do you think that you will appeal this, the verdict?
It's in the hands of the solicitors at the minute. You know, we'll let the dust settle, we'll read through all the documentation. Well, when I say we, they will, and I'm sure we'll probably have conversations in the future about what's next, if anything, and, you know, what we do.
Talking about the court and perceptions of court, you know, your outfits were really scrutinised all the way through this court case, as were Colleen Rooney's. Do you feel like there was an element of sexism in the coverage of this case?
Totally. The whole thing was presented in such a misogynistic way. I mean, you know, when Johnny Depp was going through his court case, there was hardly any articles, if any, about how much money he'd spent and, you know, his outfits. But it just seems like women aren't allowed to defend themselves. Women aren't allowed to, you know, dress nicely. Yeah, there's a lot of sexism involved in it.
You think Amber Heard got a raw deal?
To be honest, I didn't really follow the case too much. I think the way she was treated in court, yes.
Yeah, because you have spoken about David Sherborne and the way that he treated you, and he was actually reprimanded for the way that he spoke to you at one point.
Yeah.
David Sherborne was Colleen Rooney's barrister for the trial. He's no stranger to high-profile cases, having represented Johnny Depp and Meghan Markle before. But the judge at times questioned his tone when he cross-examined Rebecca Vardy in court.
How did that feel on the stand in that court?
Horrendous. I still have flashbacks of it now. I felt like I was bullied. I felt like I was shamed for stuff that I had done many, many years ago that had no bearing on the case whatsoever. And I feel like I wasn't given an opportunity to answer the questions the way they should have been put to me. But, you know, that was obviously the way he wanted to go with it. And, you know, yeah, it wasn't a nice experience at all.
He was making the point in court that if you were going to sue for libel, your character is in question, and that's why he brought those things up. That's why he brought up questions about previous stories.
Yeah.
Can you see why he would do that?
No, not in the way he did. You know, it should have been based on what the accusations were. I mean, I was always threatened from day one with their legal team that if I was to pursue this, that I would be character assassinated. That was always a threat.
They told you that?
Yeah. So I knew to some extent, you know, what they were trying to do to me, the stuff that was being put in the press, and, you know, having to read the defence firsthand in the Daily Mail. We didn't read it through my solicitors, I read it through the press.
And what do you think that says about the other side?
I don't know. I'll leave that to be open to interpretation.
Coming up,
I think he wanted to make me cry. I think that was the ultimate goal.
you're watching the News Desk special, Rebecca Vardy, Colleen and me.
I'm Julia Hartley-Brewer, and this is Talk TV. I think my most memorable and proudest moment in journalism over all these years is actually being on air during the lockdowns, even when I had COVID myself. Over the last 2 years, getting people to tell their stories, not just about people who lost loved ones to COVID, but people who lost their fundamental freedoms, their children's schooling, their mental health, their physical health, their businesses, and giving people the chance to tell their stories about how it affected them.
I'm Tom Newton-Dunn, and this is Talk TV. The most memorable moment in my career, without sounding completely conceited, has to be interviewing President Trump in the Oval Office in the White House. Particularly the little red button he had on his desk. I had no idea what he did as the interview went on. I wondered more was he going to launch a nuclear strike on North Korea or open up a shark pit that I'd then fall into. Turned out he pressed it right at the end of the interview, and in walked a butler with a tray carrying a Diet Coke. It was a Diet Coke button.
What was the most distressing moment for you during that case?
I think the most distressing moment was probably we having to talk about the abuse. But the way it was handled was, it was brought in at a time where it was clearly brought in to cause maximum distress to me, to make me feel vulnerable, and confused and, upset. I think he wanted to make me cry. I think that was the ultimate goal, was to see me upset.
Why do you think he wanted that?
I don't know.
The judge in this case said that she believed that you didn't understand or couldn't fully contemplate your role in all of this, that you are essentially in denial about it. Do you think she's right?
No, definitely not. I wouldn't have pursued this for as long as I had if I, given stories to the media. I mean, anyone who thinks anyone would put themselves through what I've been through with this, knowing all along that they were responsible, is just insane.
Yeah, that's the question, isn't it? That a lot of people have. They don't understand why you would continue down this road. I mean, were you ever warned by your legal team that this is not going to go your way? You need to stop.
No, because they knew I didn't do it. And that is the exact reason that I carried on for as long as I did. And I will say that till I'm blue in the face. I did not do it.
Mm. Did Jamie ever say, I can't watch this anymore enough?
No, he was always fully supportive. He was 110% behind me. In fact, he encouraged me because, as did I. He read the documents. He saw what I went through, and he knew what I was facing, and he fully encouraged me to do it.
There were some fairly nasty messages that came up in court between you and your agent that were read out, obviously that Colleen heard, that lots of people that know you heard. How do you feel about those?
Look, I think most people, if you went through their private messages on WhatsApp, you'd find something in them talking about things that shouldn't be made public, that, was not fit for public consumption. And yes, I do swear. I'm not going to apologise for that. And we say things sometimes in messages that are taken out of context. And unless you read the full messages, you don't really understand people's personalities. You can't just take a snippet of a conversation and, make an assessment based on that.
Did you apologise to Colleen for them?
For what?
For those messages?
No.
For that language?
No.
Do you think you ever would want to?
It's something that I thought at the time, and it's, I'm not going to apologise for a message that I sent privately.
Mm. Do you think if there were an opportunity in the future for you two to come back together, to have a conversation, have a glass of wine, would you welcome that? Would you want to do that?
Yeah, of course. As I said, I don't wish her any ill feeling whatsoever. Maybe one day we'll get a coffee together.
Were you good friends before this?
No, I wouldn't say we were good friends. I was supportive of her when she went through situations. We sent each other presents when the kids were born, and, we were just generally nice to each other.
Do you remember the first time you met her?
Yeah, but that's not fit for camera.
Was she nice to you? Was she cold?
I don't know, it was almost like, I have spoken about this in court, the first time I met her was like the new girl going into an environment that they didn't want to accept any new people into. There was already this group of girls, and they weren't keen on having anyone else involved.
They
That's how
wanted
it felt.
They wanted to shut you out.
I wouldn't say necessarily shut me out, and I'm sure that probably wasn't the case, but football can be quite a toxic environment if you allow it to bother you, that is.
Is it hard to find your place in a world like that?
Yes, if you're looking to find your place in a world like that. I never was. You know, football to me is something that my husband does and does incredibly well, and you know, that's his place, and you know, that's me going there to support him.
There are very few people who will ever experience that world in the way that you have. Lots of people have said that the WAG, the wives and girlfriends lifestyle, is really isolating, it's very lonely. Is that how you found it to be?
To some extent, yeah, but I wasn't really into, you know, I didn't go to football games to make friends. I went to support my husband. And, you know, I took my family, I took my friends, and wasn't there to mingle. I was there, would be nice, but that wasn't the reason I'd go to matches. It was to support my husband, and that was it. But you know, I've been in this football industry now with Jamie for quite a while, and you know, you see things that are not pleasant sometimes, and that's why we tend to keep our lives very separate between football and you know, personal life.
Do you have close friends in that footballing world now?
No, I don't think I've ever really had close friends in football. I've got a couple of friends that I've had for a while in that circle, but players come and go, and you know, you'd be making friends all the time. And to be honest, I just don't have time to do that anymore. I've got 5 kids, and you know, when we go to football, it's there to support Daddy, and that's it.
Did anyone from that world, from that group of girls that you've spoken about, did they take sides? Did they shun you? How have people reacted to you after that, after all this?
I didn't get people involved. This wasn't anyone else's fight, and it wasn't positions I wanted to put people in. I don't want people to take sides. That wasn't what it was about. You know, this was something between her and I, and that's the way it should have stayed. People shouldn't be forced into, you know, being friends with someone. I mean, it's like being 12 years old again, isn't it, in the playground? Yeah, it wasn't like that.
Have you had supportive messages from people?
Yeah, I've had lovely messages from people, really nice messages from people, really supportive ones, and that's nice to know. And I think when you go through hard situations, you really learn who your true friends are, and that's why our circle is so small.
There have been accusations that when you first met Colleen, and you talked about how hierarchical that group of women was, that you were trying to break into that you wanted to be photographed, that you even organised photographers, and a lot of people do it, but that you organised photographers to take pictures of you.
Listen, I have always said that. I have done set-up pictures. I do set-up pictures, but again, it's a way of controlling something that you've either got a book coming out that you want to publicise, or you're doing something that you want to publicise. And anyone in this industry that pretends they don't do set-up pictures, it's just ridiculous. If you do it, own it. You know, there's no shame in having your pictures taken, none whatsoever. And I'll probably do it again. And there's no shame in that. You know, why people don't tell the truth about doing set-up pictures, goodness knows. You know, the Daily Mail's filled with it. Everyone knows that that's the way it goes in this industry. I mean, there are a few times that you do get caught out by a photographer and not flattering, and they're awful. But in terms of, I mean, it's ludicrous. The whole, if you're referring back to the 2016 Euros, intentionally sitting behind someone to generate publicity at a football game when there's, in a different country, God knows how many, you know, fans are in that stadium. Goodness knows how many photographers. I mean, it would take someone to really, really know what they were doing to pull that off. But you
would all have been sat in the same place because those spaces were reserved for people who were coming with the players. And how is that any different to setting up a photo?
Well, you don't know where you're sitting until you pick the tickets up.
But how is it different? I suppose that's what I'm trying to understand. How is it different? If you're accepting that it's totally fine to set up a photo, how is that any different?
Well, one, that didn't happen. And 2, you're going to be pictured anyway. because you're in a stadium, everyone's pretty much sat scattered around all in that area. And why would you need to?
But it wouldn't have been a big deal to have done it, because...
No, and if I had, I would have said I had. You know, to me, if I had done it, you know, like I just said then, it's no big deal to me if I have done set-up pictures. So if I had done that, I'd just turn around and own it.
Can you see why the lines sound like they're blurred?
No. No, because I don't understand how you can be accused of setting up a picture in a stadium full of people, not knowing where you were sitting beforehand, and doing your own set-up pictures, knowing where you're going, knowing where you're going to be, knowing that the photographer's going to take pictures of just you. It's very different.
Are you still in touch with any of those other women?
Yeah, a few of them, yeah.
And were they sympathetic when what, did they try and help you or
To be
support
fair,
you? Or?
like I said before, a lot I didn't involve, I didn't talk to them about, I didn't want them to feel like they had to take sides, because that wasn't what it was about. It's not about taking sides. And yeah, I still speak to a few of them occasionally.
What comes next for you now? Do you have any concerns about where you can go from here?
I think for me, first and foremost, is taking a breath. You know, looking at all the opportunities that I've been given so far, that I've got, and then deciding what's best for me to do.
Do you worry that it might be difficult for you to find work that you want to do meaningful?
No, there's been quite a few offers on the table of lots of different things already, and you know, I think for me it's really important to find something that inspires me and something that is meaningful and something that I really, really want to do.
I want to ask you a difficult question. It's something you've spoken about before. It's abuse that you suffered when you were younger, when you were around 15 years old. And I want to ask you about that, because one of the things that you said at the time, and it really stuck out for me, was that you found it really distressing that people didn't believe you.
Yeah.
And that people said that you were making things up. That's what's happening again now.
Yeah.
People are saying that they don't believe you.
Yeah.
And that you're making this up. How does that feel to go through that again now as an adult?
It's hard, it's challenging, but I've dealt with it once and I've come out of it the other end, and I'll deal with it again and come out of it the other end. You know, you can only allow yourself to be controlled if that's the way you know, if that's the way you want to go, and I refuse to let it control or define me.
Do you think there's some part of you that wants to make people believe you? Do you think that's why you pursue this so determinedly?
No, it wasn't. I didn't do this for the public to believe me. I didn't do this for anything but because that's what I truly believed in, and that's what I truly believe in, and that's what everyone close to me and everyone that knows this case inside out. I didn't do it.
Is there any part of you that wants to bow out of the public eye now?
Do you know what? I did go through stages of thinking that, and then I thought, I don't know, no, probably not, but, you know, you'll probably see me doing things that are different. I want to concentrate on my horses now. My horses and the kids, and, you know, rebuilding all that kind of lost time that I've had dealing with all this stresses and stuff, and re-channeling and refocusing and putting my energies into doing positive things now.
What would your message to Jamie be, given his support throughout this?
You made me cry. I don't know, it's a tough one. It's quite a private one as well, but I think it would just probably be, you know, thank you for just supporting me through everything, and not just him, but the kids.
I'm going to end on a lighter note.
Okay.
The Lionesses.
Yeah.
They won. It's amazing. But they are now going to be thrust into that spotlight, the same spotlight that you were thrust into.
Someone once told me, get ready to be thrown into the goldfish bowl, and that's exactly what will happen to them. But you know, oh my God, how amazing was that? What an incredible, incredible thing to happen to, you know, England, and at least they managed to do it.
Not the men. The men haven't yet.
I know. We've not had much luck, have we? But, you know, congratulations to them. They're, you know, incredible role models, and, you know, more women should look up to them, and especially girls. And it just shows, you know, if you really set your heart on something and you really, really want to achieve something, no matter how many hurdles you have to cross to get there, you know, if that's your dream, go out there and fight it all the way.
Thank you very much.
Join me, Ian Collins, every day on Talk TV.
There is nothing we hate more than hypocrisy.
Discussing the big issues.
Why was it so hard to establish the deputy leader was at a meeting with her colleagues?
The callers.
Alan in Grimsby, Tracy in Burton-on-Trent. Dave, thank you very much.
Picking apart the big stuff.
This simply does not wash. Look who's back under the spotlight.
This is Talk TV News.
Good evening, I'm Nadira Tudor. The family of Archie Battersby have been told his life support treatment will be withdrawn at 10 o'clock tomorrow morning. The 12-year-old has been in a coma since April. Today, his parents lost an appeal to have him moved to a hospice to die. The Conservative Party hustings in Eastbourne were disrupted this evening by protesters who heckled Liz Truss during her opening speech. After they were evicted, the Foreign Secretary described them as militant activists and vowed to crack down on unfair protests. And if you're looking to clean your car or fill up a paddling pool this weekend, you could face a fine of up to £1,000. A hosepipe ban is now in place in Hampshire and the Isle of Wight due to the ongoing dry weather and low water levels. That's all for now. We'll have more after the talk.
The biggest issue in Britain right now has to be cost of living. How much everything is costing all of us to get to work, to pay for food, to pay for electricity and energy, and that's not a problem that's going to go away anytime soon.